General Reyek from the AFP. AFP from the AFP Western Command. From the DOTR. Commander John Lindon Vaccinella from the National Coast Watch Center. Commodore Tariela from the BCG. Good morning, sir. Captain Timbang from the BCG. And Director Agnes Batanes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, today we will again be briefed by the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea on the most recent incident between the Philippine and Chinese vessels at the West Philippine Sea. Early morning of November 10, just a few days after our last meeting, China Coast Guard and Chinese Maritime Militia swarmed and attempted to block Philippine Coast Guard vessel. At one point, a Chinese Coast Guard ship blasted a water gun toward the Philippine motorboat, carrying food and other supplies to our troops. Despite the Chinese blockades and airship maneuvers, the Philippine managed to deliver supplies to the Filipino Marines aboard the VRP Shermother and left without incident. As expected, the Philippine government and both from China to respect the rule of law. The DFA underscored that the supply mission room and the upkeep of the VRP Shermother and legitimate Philippine government activities in our exclusive economic zone and in accordance with international law particular responses. I want to reiterate that the committee is embracing the work of the Philippine government's approach in dealing the West Philippine Sea. And Congress is ready to aid the National Task Force of the West Philippine Sea in every possible way we can. Now, as always, we will first request our guests to provide the opening statement, starting with the representative for the National Task Force of the West Philippine Sea. Chairperson, we will then ask the governor to like the remarks or both some short levels to our resource afterwards. Due to the sensitivity of the subject and the information that may endanger national security, the committee will continue the meeting in executive session. On that note, let us begin, and may I call on whoever will be the first one to do the briefing for this meeting. Assistant Director General Plans.
Yes. Isa-share nila.
Your Honor, Chair.
Okay na po.
I shall be reading the statement from our Secretary of the Chairman of the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea. And this is on behalf of the entire members of the NTF-WPS. So, I quote, sir. Honorable Representative Nepali Gonzalez, the second third, Representative Manuel Cortez,
Wala bang kape?
and the other members
Laman.
of the Committee on West Philippine Sea, or SCWPS, colleagues in the executive branch, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea, allow me to extend our gratitude for the invitation and for the opportunity to brief the Special Committee on significant developments in the WPS, particularly with regard to the recent incidents surrounding the rotation and resupply mission in Ayungin Shoal on 09 to 11 November 2023. We are happy to report that the resupply mission was a success, despite the continued dangerous blocking maneuvers and harassments by China Coast Guard and Chinese maritime militias. And there were several operational enhancements or improvements that were made by the AFP and the Philippine Coast Guard that were suggested by the esteemed members of this special committee during our last meeting with the STWPS on 07 November 2023. Such operational enhancements to the RORE mission initially disoriented Chinese response.
Ay, salamat.
Details of these will be reported to you shortly by the military law enforcement working group of the NTF-WPS through the AFP Western Command. We would also like to apprise this special committee that in response to the said incident, the Department of Foreign Affairs has demarched the Chinese Foreign Ministry and protested these actions of China. The DFA also reached out to the embassy and conveyed our protest directly through the maritime communications mechanism. In addition, we would like to inform this committee that several countries have condemned the unlawful and dangerous conduct of Chinese vessels in Philippine waters, while at the same time express support for the Philippines. These are Australia, the European Union, France, Japan, New Zealand, Timor-Leste, and the United States. We would like to emphasize that all have called on China to observe peace and stability and to follow a rules-based order in the WPS in accordance with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. Most have also urged China to follow the 2016 arbitral ruling. Mr. Chair, members of this committee, the NTF-WPS remains steadfast in protecting our sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction in the WPS. We certainly consider this recent incident a very serious concern, and we are one with you in exploring workable solutions while maintaining peace and security in the WPS. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Will there be someone else from the National Task Force who would like to address the committee?
Sir, as I mentioned,
So wala na necessary. Before we proceed, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of our Vice Chair from the Congressman from the First District of Oriental Mindoro, the Honorable Arnan Panaligan.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, good morning to members, colleagues, and our resource persons. Sinabi nga ni Chair kanina, may dinadadala sa meeting na it wouldn't mean that in every incident that we have, kailangan natin ng briefing. I mean, this is basically an executive matter that has to be discussed. The Special Committee on the West Philippine Sea is here to provide some policy direction on how we are going to deal with the dispute over the West Philippine Sea. But in so far as the national policy is concerned, we are all in agreement that we will abide by the rule, especially on the UNCLOS and the arbitral award. We have been confronted with the military capability of each of the parties concerned, and it's speaking of the obvious that we are less militarily capable than the Chinese. With that situation at hand, what would the committee or the West Philippine Sea Task Force recommend on how to way forward on dealing with this, considering that there appears to be a more massive deployment of Chinese militia vessels in the area, and we can very well anticipate further incidents. Tatawag na naman tayo ng meeting, we will be briefed, but sana ba tayo talaga pupunta with your guidance, and can you guide this committee also? Thank you very much.
Chair. First of all, we appreciate this regular conduct of our briefs to the Congress and the National Task Force there because this is an opportunity actually for us to really send out our sentiments about the need for us to capacitate ourselves in the area. And we keep going forward actually with developing this capacity so that we develop our credible defense posturing, in our support to the government in the area. And I mean, what I mean actually is the resource that we can solicit from Congress. We need to understand.
We just acknowledge the presence of the deputy minority leader, representative of teachers parties on the funds of custom. Any other comment by the members or the responsible?
Yeah, thank you for that very candid response. That indeed, this meeting, the intention of the task force is to solicit probably some financial addition for the strengthening of the forces within the area. For our part, we will take note of that and in the budget deliberations, probably this committee would insist on something more complete, but probably we can ask from the task force a complete proposal, a written complete proposal on what is it that you need vis-a-vis the financial constraints that we have, so that we can formally forward the matter to the Committee on Appropriations and probably to the rest of the membership of Congress. Thank you. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chair, and the members of the committee, and to our resource person. So, yung nangyayari kasi ng mga incidents, it occurred nung meron mga resupply vision, am I right, Mr. Chair? And kita naman natin na outnumbered yung ating mga pinapadala na mga vessels, no, or assets. I read in the news kagabi, actually, last night, that in Julian Philippine Reef, no, parang grade 1 na yung mga vessels ng yung Chinese maritime militia, no, 100, 200, whatever. And in contrast, the vessels that we can deploy at a given time, especially during our resupply mission, are very limited, no? So we should agree on task force as a matter of strategy na dagdagan natin ang mga vessels natin na mapapadala, redeploy during the supply mission. I understand noong a few weeks ago when the collision incident occurred, dalawang vessel ang water ng present at saka yung dalawang leading contracted indigenous boat. So 4 vessels only against several thousand vessels. Is it possible for us to deploy additional vessels whenever we undertake raw mission sa Ayungin Show? Kasi parang numbers ang yan, number 3, may paramihan ng assets, and of course, talo tayo. So would it help para mabawas yung harassment, or we can withstand yung harassment if we have more assets to be deployed during our raw mission?
Mr. Chair, good morning. Sir, with your due respect, sir, we will be having answered for that, sir, to include, sir, our way forward on some of our recommendations. Again, provided during the executive session, sir. Some of this will have impact on our the operational matters. Thank you, sir.
I understand, Sir Chair, maybe you will be disclosing a matter that is sensitive, so I understand that. Pero it's a good point ito, I want to bring this up. I noticed in your raw emissions, no, particularly during the time that there was a collision or an incident a few weeks ago, the vessels that the Navy contracted with indigenous boats, no? Is it possible for us to contract a bigger vessel, for example, steel hull, para mag-start naman yung mga ramming na yan, no?
instead of hiring yung mga ibang tao sa ganung klaseng boat is within half vessels, ano? Parang nung araw, ang tawag sa amin niya, Senador yung Patel, di ba? Ako yun. Before niya atin kasi Aurora, yun ang mga boat sa amin sa Mindoro, no? Parang Patel. So, is it possible for us to hire? They still have vessels para naman hindi para i-repeat ang ating mga pinamadalawan for supply missions.
Oh, sir, that's like what Gerald Reyes stated, sir. We will basically answer in detail all these questions, but generally, sir, what we are doing, it is already given that we cannot match number by number the available resources of China in the area. But if we build all the Philippine Navy and Coast Guard, still we will still be having. But what we are doing, sir, is trying to present a different menu of response to the Chinese in doing our role, so that it will complicate matters for the Chinese, and that would give us a greater chance of success to accomplish our role. All your recommendations, sir, like what you guys stated, are all being considered, sir. Everything is on the table, sir. We just trying to mix and match all of these resources, all of these responses, sir. Para hindi lang yung puro role na yung dati, sir, na unay sa May 1 and 2. If you would notice, sir, during the last roar, one of the reasons for its success is we use a much faster vessel, which the Chinese, I think, were a bit surprised because before they knew how the unay sa May runs very slow moving, but when they use a LDU own vessel, which is much faster than the unay sa May, so they were unable to classify. So that is what we are doing, and trying to present a more complex response to during our ROR mission in order for us to have a greater probability of success. So everything, sir, all the options are in the table.
I agree, Mr. Chair. Maybe we can resort to more innovative approaches in building our vessels there, in performing our mission and other security missions. I think this is the result. We need not much the number of Chinese vessels, no, because that is impossible to do. But of course, we have to aspire for the build-up of a more credible force for the Navy and Coast Guard. It will, of course, take time. No? We know that it can be done overnight or in months or years. And it is the result of our long years of, shall we say, inaction in modernizing our Navy and Coast Guard and the armed forces in general. It will take time, of course. This Congress in the past has done its share, but of course, because of our present economic problems, the national government cannot really fast track the modernization of the Navy and Coast Guard. But we support we recognize the need to facilitate, to fast track the modernization of our sea forces. Rest assured of our support on that matter. But in the meantime, we will have to resort to other means. No? I believe there is a way for that.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat sa National Task Force on West Philippine Sea. By the way, first, Mr. Chair, point of inquiry, nag-briefing na po ba doon sa nangyari recent na nakapag-briefing na to? Ay, hindi pa. Okay, so ang tanong ko lang, Mr. Chair, can the task force give us the real situation now doon sa Hulian Pilipili na kanina nga pinag-usapan natin, sabi ni kong Arman, 100 vessels ng China. So, sino po yung pwedeng mag-brief sa atin ng tungkol doon sa situation ngayon? And kasi nakakabahala, Mr. Chair, kasi this is our exclusive economic zone. So, hindi natin pwedeng papayaan magtagal sila doon or talagang sobrang pambuhuli na yan. Kasi nung last meeting natin, Mr. Chair, due sa last incident ng bullying o yung ginagawa nila incursion dun sa ating exclusive economic zone, then file na tayo ng consolidated house resolution para po doon sa doon sa kundinahin yung eto na naman, mas grabe po ito So, well, yung sitwasyon, So why do you think na ganun kalakas ang loob nitong mga Chinese na militia or ano ba yan? Chinese Liberation Army ba yan? O People's Liberation Army na mag-incur doon sa ating exclusive economic zone. So bigyan niyo nga po kami ng latest development. At ano yung gagawin natin? So kung meron na po kayo, initial man lang, ay pwede namin marinig. Sir Chair.
Right. I'm Vice Admiral Vargas, Commander of the Western Command. We are pleased to connect with you. On the situation in the Hogan military, based on our latest air patrol, they reacted to the patrol of the Philippine Coast Guard. As of our last count, there are only 28. They were drastically reduced from a high of 135 Chinese militia vessels. There are now only 28. As I said, they seem to be reacted to the patrol made by the Philippine Coast Guard. We monitored it at the middle of November. We started out with 90 and then tumaas hanggang 135, and then the Coast Guard went there on patrol. Last Saturday, it's in our last monitoring yesterday, umalis naman po, there are now 28 only in the Woodland Military.
Sir Chair, kay Vice Admiral Carlos, kailan po nagsimula yung version doon sa Julian Philippines?
In Woodland Military, sir, it's early November, sir. Ma'am, early November, Chair.
What is this early November? Can you give us the definite date?
Our earliest ISR flight in November is 5 and 6, November 5 and 6. And then the next, we monitored those about 60, and then on November 13, tumaas ng 90. And then based on this last is 135 with the Philippine Coast Guard report. And it's now, as of yesterday, 20 Chinese militia vessels are still parked in Korean military.
Thank you, Sir Jeffrey. So, ang ibig sabihin po, yung 135 na ito nagsimula noong November 5 and 6. So, when did the PCG react to this? So, anong day po kayo nag-react? Kasi, so November 5 and 6, then November 13, tumaas ng 60 hanggang naging 135. Then, today, December 5, down to 25. So, kailan po ba kayo nag-react nun?
Probably first monitor the presence. Every time we monitor the presence of Chinese militia in any part of the West Philippine Sea, we send out our patrols, both the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard. We jointly patrol the West Philippine Sea. When we first monitored it, there are 2 Philippine Navy vessels already in the area. So we went there, we issued the usual as our SOP, we issued a range of challenges. They have monitored their presence, documented their presence. And it was only when the Philippine Coast Guard went there on December 2, I think, December 2, that we noticed that they reacted and they left Woodland Military, and we are still monitoring their locations as of now.
Well, Mr. Chair, I will continue with you. So, 135 noong November 5 and 6, and then you reacted December 2. Don't you think late na yung reaction natin doon? Kasi paano ba natin minomonitor yung ating EEZ? Kasi ito po, Admiral, Vice Admiral, ano na natin to pag-aari na natin to whether magkaroon ng Chinese vessel doon o hindi. So paano natin, sana maging proactive tayo, hindi tayo reactive. Diba? So tapos parang mag-1 month bago tayo nag-react. So ang ginagawa lang natin, tinitignan lang natin sila. So ganun lang ba yung ginagawa? Ang dami na nilang magagawa with that span of days. Baka naglagay na sila ng kung ano-ano doon sa exclusive economic zone na hindi natin alam. So bakit ganun po tayo kabagal doon sa reaction research niyo?
With due respect to the Honorable Congressman, we are always in the WPS when we monitor any increase in the presence of Chinese vessels in any feature in the West Philippine Sea. We are always there, Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard. We follow the existing procedure to confront this presence. Like I said, we are issuing range challenges to document the presence to be the basis for the finding of the diplomatic protest. when we monitored it on December 5, our ships were already there with the Philippine Coast Guard, the Philippine Navy. Ito lang nga po, they reacted when the Philippine Coast, during the last patrol of the Philippine Coast Guard in the, on December 2. But we've been monitoring their presence, regular conduct of ISR flight. Every 5 days, we know where they are. All the vessels, all the vessels in the West Philippine Sea, we're monitoring and we are deploying forces as appropriate. And our responses are all in accordance with existing operational guidance given to us in the area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hindi effective po yung ating ginagawa. So yung diplomatic protest po through the DFA, nag-file na po tayo. When po, Vice Admiral, Mr.
Before you answer that, may we just acknowledge the presence of our the Honorable Congressman from the 3rd District of Quezon, Renante Tarugan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your question. On the matter of diplomatic protests, we have been filing diplomatic protests on the incursions that were reported to the Department of Affairs and that were given to us by the NTF-WPS for filing. So we reviewed the report and if it is deemed as a basis for our notes for valid, then we filed it.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Mr. Chair. So mukhang hindi na pinapansin ng China yung ating mga non-verbal at mga diplomatic protest. So bilhin po, from 135, natuwa tayo bumaba to 125. Tuwa na po ba tayo? Pero nandun pa rin siya sa exclusive economic zone. So ano pa po ba yung pwede natin gawin? Kailangan mawala sila doon. Kasi exclusive economic zone natin. So parang hindi effective yung sinasabi ng existing procedure. Kasi siguro ng ibang bansa yan. Siguro sa mga experience ng Indonesia na nababasa ko, pag tumutong ka kahit na isang vessel doon sa exclusive economic zone nila. Pero syempre hindi naman natin gagawin yung very drastic, ayaw naman natin yun. Baka ano pa po ba yung pwede nyo maisip na mas tingin ninyo na pwede pa natin gawin? Aside doon sa existing procedure, kasi hindi na nila pinapansin yun. Yung diplomatic protest, hindi na nila pinapansin yun. Mr. Chair.
Vice Admiral.
Thank you, ma'am. For our response on the ground, are really very calibrated, ma'am. We want to keep the peace on the ground. That's why our responses are very, very well calibrated. We're just monitoring our efforts on the ground. I really on establishing a strong naval presence with the Philippine Coast Guard and monitoring the situation on the ground to our maritime domain example, and also our last effective application. We are increasing our off-tempo on these 3 areas. Hopefully, we will improve, we will change some realities on the ground. But these are all efforts that we are continuously improving, increasing the off-tempo until we will have an amended rules engagement and SOP on the ground decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, no? So, pero yung tinatawag ito, Mr. Chair, so hindi ko natasakatan kung sa ginagawa ng ating kinaupulan doon sa pangyayaring ito. Tingin ko dapat mag-heighten tayo ng ano ba yung mga pwede nating panggawin. Kung hindi uubra ito, ano pa ba yung mga pwede nating gawin? Kasi kailangan natin pagtanggol yung natin, soberanya. Diba? So, isang buwan na tapos nandiyan pa yung 25 na yon. So, soberanya ang usapin dito, hindi lang kung ano lang po. So, soberanya natin ito. Territorial. Hindi lang sovereign rights. Soberanya natin ito kasi sa atin po ito. So, yung 25 na yan. So, kailangan may gawin na talagang totally maalis yan. Ano po ba mapapangako na or makukumit na concrete na pwedeng magawa, Mr. Chair.
I noticed Congressman Tariela raising his hand. You may respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With all due respect to the Honorable Congresswoman Castro, I think the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine Coast Guard understand our patriotic duty in maintaining our presence in the West Philippine Sea. With your first question as to whether the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine Coast Guard are not proactive in responding to the presence of the Chinese maritime militia. I would like to emphasize that as what Admiral Carlos mentioned, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, together with the Philippine Air Force, Philippine Navy, and the Philippine Coast Guard, when we learned that the Chinese maritime militia started swarming in Julian Felipe, we have constantly sent our limited assets, whether it's the Philippine Navy or the Philippine Coast Guard. That's why we were able to document their increasing presence from November until last Saturday of December 2. Now, the second question, whether
May I cut to them, Commodore Ariel. Sabi nyo, November 5 to 6, pero nag-react lang kayo ng PCG ng December 3. So, ang daming araw noon, di ba? Nanamonitor nyo na November 5 and 6 So, di ba sabi niyo po, sabi hanggang sa umaba na siya. So, 135. So, I don't believe na talagang ginagawa niyo yung patungkulan o sinasabi niyo po na enough yung ginagawa niyo para mapigil natin ito. So, I beg to disagree doon sinasabi niyo. Kasi, kaya nga po tinatanong ko, no? Kailan niyo na-monitor? November 5 and 6? Tapos, bumaba siya, 15, 1916, 1925. December 2 lang kayo po nag-react.
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. Mag-respond lang po ako sa tanong niyo, ma'am. No? Ang Philippine Coast Guard po, November 13, nagpunta doon, and also December 2. Ganito po yan, ma'am. Ang deployment po ng Philippine Coast Guard at ng Armed Forces of the Philippines on a rotational basis. Kung nag-deploy na po si Westcom ng Philippine Navy on November 5 and 6, and then the Philippine Coast Guard will do their patrol on the next following week. And then eventually the Philippine Air Force as well will be sending their aircraft. Hindi lang po Philippine Coast Guard. Again, with the very limited assets that we have, just to emphasize, we only have 3 vessels in Palawan. And if you can just imagine how vast West Philippine Sea is, we cannot expect that the Philippine Coast Guard will be there 24/7 in Julian Felipe to watch over the swarming of the Chinese maritime militia. And then the second question, ma'am, just to respond to your question, are we effective in doing what we're doing right now? I think so. With the transparency initiative that we have launched since February, wherein we exposed the swarming of Chinese maritime militia, we can notice how they responded. The swarming of Sabina Shoal before, in last April, when we publicized it, a few days after they left. When they did the swarming in Iroquois Reef, we also publicized it, they also left. Now here in Julian Felipe, are we going to celebrate this already? With the 135 down to 28? I think so. And then in the next coming days, we're still going to expect that they're going to withdraw.
Okay, Mr. Chair, why not? Sinasabi natin, hindi pa tayo nasa-celebrate dito. Kahit na isang vessel na nakalagay yung China doon, ano yun, violation dun sa ating soberanya. Hindi tayo natutuwa doon, Mr. Chair, kay Commodore doon sa sinasabi niya. Hindi tayo nasa-celebrate doon sa 135, naging 25. Hindi ako satisfied doon, Mr. Chair. Kasi, pero hindi mo dapat sabihin na nasa-celebrate kayo dahil sa 135. Mr. Chair, ginawa nyo, nag-down sila sa 125 dahil December 2 lang kayo nag-react. Well, I appreciate, no, with the limited resources of the PCG, and even siguro yung AFP natin, kayo ngayon, naghihingi kayo dito ng more, tingin ko more funding capacity, but naman yon, pwede naman yon, at tama naman yon. Kaya lang po, Mr. Chair, kung sinasabi mo kanina, Mr. Chair, sabi ni Commodore, kailangan na, hindi nila pwedeng mabantayan yan 24 hours or araw-araw. Why not? Di ba? So ano kaya tinatanong natin, Mr. Chair, dito? Ano pa ba yung pwede natin gawin? Para mabantayan natin man lang yung ECC natin. Hindi na yung West Philippine Sea man lang. Ito, yung ECC natin, yun lang po, Mr. Chair, kasi talagang worry talaga ako na tayo ay binubuli ng China na ganito yung capacity natin. Nakakahiya, di ba? So, yun po, Mr. Chair.
Before you respond, I just want to ask Vice Admiral Carlos, if I heard you correctly, that you likewise sent the Philippine Navy ship. And by Philippine Navy ship, are you referring to gray ship? The gray ship. So, we were informed before, para hindi masyadong intention mataas doon sa West Philippine Sea. You try to, huwag mo na nagpapadala ng mga gray ships, di ba? Because that's, parang na yan, combat na yan, di ba? So, nagpapadala kayo, light ship, Coast Guard, etc. But you said a while ago na nagpadala kayo ng Philippine Navy ship, ano? So in what instances, kayo pwede magpadala ng, ano, ng gray ships instead of purely white ships lang? Kasi I noticed when you said, Karina, when you, parang ang impression ko is when you said also a Philippine Navy gray ship, parang bumawas ng konti yung presence nila doon. So, if that be the case, anong situation ang pwedeng, kasi alam naman natin, ginawa mo na doon eh. Di ba nawawa natin yung presence, lipat-lipat na sila. So, what instances can you send gray ships instead of purely white ships lang? Kasi parang hindi natatakot sa white ships natin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question, sir. For the deployment of ships, the gray and the Philippine Coast Guard, first, the gray ships, the Philippine Navy ships are always present in WPS to maintain naval presence. So they were always there. We provide the numbers during the executive briefing. Just to maintain the presence, going on maritime patrol, going on sovereignty patrols, just to show the flag that we are there. That this is our EEC. We have sovereign rights over this area. We have jurisdiction. To show the flag, the Philippine Navy will always be there. In terms of confronting and non-confrontationally driving away the militias, we prepare to use the Philippine Coast Guard, the white ships, to do that radio challenge and to ask them to leave. So if the Coast Guard is there, we prepare to use them to challenge the presence of the militias, the militia vessels. If they're not there, the Philippine Navy vessel per our SOP will issue the radio challenge. As mentioned by Commodore Taliana, we are on a rotational basis. We cannot keep the Philippine Coast Guard in the West Philippine Sea 24/7. Yung pong Navy, medyo nakakalapit-lapit kami sa 24/7 presence. But the numbers, in terms of number naman, very limited pa rin po, sir, compared to what we are, the number of Chinese vessels, Chinese Coast Guard and PLA Navy vessels that we are confronting with the area. But at least, we maintain our presence there. There's always a Philippine government vessel flying the Philippine flag in WPS.
So by sending a gray ship, hindi naman necessarily tayo makikipag-gera, di ba? So we are just there to patrol.
Yes.
And would you say na mas effective to minsan kung magpadala ka ng gray ship instead of yung white ship lang? Kasi hindi naman kailangan i-approach para lang makita nila na nandun yung ating mga gray ship instead of a white ship na kasi talagang based on experience, hindi talaga natatakot sa mga white ship natin.
Yes, for deterrent purposes and showing the flag, the gray ship will always there, sir, to confront the militia vessels and to go in there and inspect or visually inspect whatever they're doing there. We prepare to use the one ship so as not to escalate the situation. Baka at least instead of sending the gray ship, which is a combatant ship, to check on the militia vessels, which is China's claims are all civilian. So we prepare to use the Philippine Coast Guard just to inspect them or just to take a look at them closely and also to challenge their presence in the features that they are swarming in WPS.
Hindi siya nakikialam sa inyo. That's your trabaho niya yan. Pero because of our limited vessel, Coast Guard, combine mo na Coast Guard, talagang limited, we not compare with them. Pero mas parang, ang tingin ko, parang medyo, hindi pa naman kailangan, by instead of the radio challenge, anyway, if we believe, and we believe legally that that's ours based on international as part of exclusive economic zone, bakit hindi tayo kahit isa o dalawa from time to time, no? That we are delivering a stronger message, no? Kasi if you notice po, yung second, from the time na investment tayo nag-hearing ng West Philippine Sea, and ginagawa natin executive meeting because we do realize that there are certain information that you cannot reveal to us, like any plan we hope and we know that you have plans in the future, but you cannot so-called deliver your punches publicly, di ba? So in the delivery of your punches, doon naman talaga tayo mag-ingat. Kasi kami, we realizing that diplomacy is a executive thing, then we leave it to you. And besides, kami lang naman, ano naman kami, special committee lang naman kami, extra lang kami rito. Pero we are also, groping from direction from how we can, sabi nga ni Congressman Wowo kanina, how we can help you in your policy direction. But my God, please naman, huwag tayo nagdideliver ng bunches natin. Kasi katulad kagabi, nakakaroon ko si AFP Chief Browner. Nung tinanong siya ng media na kasi sinasabi 135 ships na natin. Publicly, sasabihin mo publicly. It's basically impossible for us to drive them away. Ganoon pala eh. Sabihin ng China, sige, wala namang parang capability dito mga to eh. Talagang wala ito. So, doon na lang tayo. So, parang we are giving them the information to do what they can. And kahit na 25 lang padala nila dyan eh. Wala naman tayong mapapadala. Every time that we mention something that weakens our position, kaya hindi natin pwede makipaggera sa China, laki ng yan, hindi na mauubusan tayo, hindi natin pwede makipaglaban, bigla nagsusulputan yung mga island eh. Dumadami. Ito na naman tayo. Kasalita na naman tayo na we cannot visit. Kaya ko na sinasabi, hindi para makipaggera, but based on your statement a while ago, nung nagpadala kayo ng gray sheet, medyo nabawasan ng konti. So, I don't suppose that si Browner was totally and absolutely correct in saying na, but even assuming that he is correct, pero my God, kung naman natin sinasabi sa China, sige, punta na kayo dito, after all, hindi naman namin kayo kaya. So, it is enticing eh. It is talaga bang binibigyan mo sila ng daan para, okay naman, sige, hindi naman namin kayo kaya. So, ano mangyayari palagi sa atin? Diplomatic protest. DFA, ilan na diplomatic protest natin, di ba? Dami na. Palagi ko, pagdating ng diplomatic protest natin, dire-diretso, tayo din sa Shredder machine yan, dire-diretso na sa atin, sa basuhan. Yun lang. So, while we differ, Yusek, sa national government, sa executive, kung naman natin, hindi patches natin yung kahinaan natin in defending our own territory. Vice Admiral.
Mr. Chair,
Before you respond, may I just acknowledge the presence of Pulmonary Factories Representative, the Honorable Jerry Jeffrey.
so thank you very much for the comments. So in terms of numbers, I'd like to say that the AFP, the Coast Guard, putting up better numbers than 2 years ago. We have already increased our tempo and during the executive session, we provided the exact numbers. But we're putting up better numbers now, showing better numbers. More government vessels are flying the Philippine flag in the West Philippine Sea, just to show our jurisdiction, establish our jurisdiction over the area. We can provide the details during the executive sessions.
Actually, we like to comment what you're doing there, despite your ano ba, yung kakulangan,
Kamusta yung audio nyo?
kumbaga sa
Sa press office, ano daw?
Bakit?
Basta ba?
Pero ganun po pa, ang natin yung desire, yung heart, and we go commend you for that despite your kakulangan
Okay naman.
ng gamit, but
Hindi,
you
saan?
try to perform
Text na din,
well your task also the Philippine Sea.
Yeah.
You said or Assistant Director General?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on the part of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, of course, we share the sentiment of the entire special committee about the need for us to assert our sovereignty, sovereign rights, jurisdiction, especially including our area there. As you said, also Chair, the situation there is becoming more sensitive. We really need more in-depth discussion on this matter, and in response probably on the request of Representative Castro about the commitment that she's asking from us on how we should deal with this. You know, what else we should be doing. We actually have some ideas already, and we would like to actually probably offer a briefing, because some of the concerns that were raised were maybe responded to already by the briefing that we have already for the executive session. But we would also do another briefing for you on the details of this of the entire brilliant leader, because it's what's happening.
Hindi, okay naman. Meron naman. Nakidinig naman dito eh.
That's why. So we can discuss this in depth and what we need and how Congress can support us in terms not only of funding, but of course your expert advice on this matter. So we could provide probably a briefing in executive session on the details on this issue, and including there was concern raised earlier about bakit manufacturing in China. We can give probably an assessment, ma'am, on how we see it exactly.
So, a proposition, sir. Thank you. Vice Admiral,
So in addition to that, may I humbly recommend that the briefing will not only cover the Julian Felipe, but the entire West Philippine Sea, so we can have a whole picture of what is going on in terms of the swarming of the Chinese militia vessels, not only in Julian Felipe, but the entire WPS. We have the data, Your Honor. We can present that in an executive session. Thank you, Mr.
proceed to an executive session. Congressman Arnan Panaligan would like to say something.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. No, additional ito sa sinabi ni Chairman kanina regarding yung observation that when the Navy ships, the gray ships started patrolling, nabawasan daw yung incidents, or presence ng Chinese maritime militia. I would like to ask this question to Vice Admiral Carlos. When the Navy was conducting naval patrols, did you also encounter harassment by from Chinese Coast Guard or Chinese maritime militia vessels, like what they did to our Coast Guard vessels? Now, remember a few months ago, yung laser pointing incident, it was done by the Chinese Coast Guard against a Philippine Coast Guard vessel, no? And of course, the ramming or collision incident a few weeks ago, that was also done by the Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese maritime militia vessel against the against the Philippine Coast Guard vessel, yung MRRV Cabra. But in your experience, whenever the Navy patrols, did you encounter similar harassments from the Chinese Coast Guard or Chinese maritime militia vessels?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chinese action against Philippine Navy vessels are usually limited to shadowing at a distance about 5 to 8 nautical miles. But we have one incident this year that they cross our bow. Chinese gray ship crossing the bow of a Philippine Navy ship. But there's only one incident. Overall, there are more aggressive actions against the Philippine Coast Guard as against compared to Philippine Navy vessels, Mr. Chair.
So it appears that the Chinese Coast Guard and the Chinese maritime militia, they are more careful whenever it is the Navy that is patrolling, maybe because your vessels are surface combatants, compared to the Coast Guard vessels. Well, yes.
We are continuously assessing the situation and assessing the behavior, but that is what we observe on the ground, that they usually keep their distance from the Philippine Navy vessel, and they tend to go closer to the Philippine Coast Guard vessel. That is our observation on the ground, and the assessment and the is still ongoing on as regards to why is that the action of the other side, Mr. Chair.
I don't know if you can answer this, but is the Navy prepared to resort to that classical
naval action, the firing a shot across the bow whenever there is a more aggressive action on the part of the Chinese Coast Guard.
Your Honor, that's my number one guidance to all operating ships in the area, gray ships or the Coast Guard, not to fire any shot even across the bow, so that we will not escalate the situation on the ground. Like I said, Mr. Chair, our actions are very, very restrained, calibrated. Our main consideration is to keep the peace on the ground and probably hopefully improve the realities on the ground, as mentioned by, correctly observed by Congressman Castro. The realities on the ground are not changing, substantially changing at the pace that we want them to change. It will not change at overnight. And there are, sabi nga ni Presidente, there are no single action that we can do to change the situation on the ground. It will take time. It's a collective actions. All our strategies or our lines of effort are all designed to really change the realities on the ground. But like I said, it will not change overnight, Mr. Chair.
I agree with the observation of Admiral Carlos that we should have a calibrated response, no, in dealing with the various incidents at the West Philippine Sea. A ship captain, a Navy lieutenant commander cannot just trigger a war with a very powerful adversary, no? So I agree with your observation that we should have a calibrated response. But let me state this, that I believe that the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard are doing their very best in securing our territorial waters and exclusive economic zone to the limits of the resources available to them. We cannot fault the Navy adversary, no? So I agree with your observation that we should have a calibrated response. But let me state this, that I believe that the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard are doing their very best in securing our territorial waters and exclusive economic zone to the limits of the resources available to them. We cannot fault the Navy and the Coast Guard if there are continuing harassments or incursions in our territorial waters or exclusive economic zone. They are doing their very best. It is just that our resources are very limited. And of course, that is not that matter cannot be addressed by the Navy and Coast Guard at their level. That is a matter that should be addressed by the political leadership of this country. So I refer to the provision of more funding for the Navy and the Coast Guard. So that is a matter for the executive and the legislative to address. But at their level, I believe that the Navy and the Coast Guard are doing their patriotic duty of securing our sovereignty and territorial integrity. So I would like to express my gratitude to our Navy and Coast Guard for their patriotic duty at the West Philippine Sea. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. In order for the committee to receive a briefing from the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea and other matters that they can reveal during the public hearing.
Sovereignty and territorial integrity. So I would like to express my gratitude to our Navy and Coast Guard for their patriotic duty at the West Philippine Sea. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. In order for the committee to receive a briefing from the National Task Force on West Philippine Sea and other matters that they cannot reveal during the public hearing, we will now begin with our executive session. In accordance with rules, attendance in executive session shall be limited to committee members, the committee secretariat staff, and such other persons whose presence are required or allowed by the chair. Hence, only committee members, the secretariat, and key personnel from the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea will be allowed to stay. Meeting is now suspended for this purpose.